Welcome to the Book of Wretch, where stories of the macabre and supernatural are told. We ask all of the lost, the damned, and everything in between to join us for yet another spine-chilling tale. With that said, let's begin. I never wanted to write anything like this out. Never in several lifetimes did I think this was ever going to happen. Words cannot express my sorrow, my pain, my agony, but I will try. If nothing else, it will explain what happened to my friends. They didn't deserve to die like that. Here's my story. The current year is 2022. About 10 years ago, me and my two friends Pike and Wallowski decided to hunt for ghosts. No, a ghost didn't kill one of our family members and we vowed revenge or anything like that. We just felt adventurous. 2012 was probably the height of the ghost hunting scene, thanks to Ghost Adventures on the Travel Channel and the dozen or so other similar shows that, let's be honest here, weren't anywhere near as good. I've always been a fan of scary stories, paranormal hauntings, and dark mysteries. Pike was more of the same, but went a little more into the darker side of it. Demonic and satanic things were more his speed. Wallowski, who we just called Wolo for short, was just along for the ride. There was only one thing we liked more than ghost hunting at the time, and that was drinking. Responsibly, of course, but let's just say if drinking was an Olympic sport, Wolo would definitely be a gold medalist. So, after work once or twice a week, we would get our $7 EVP recorders from Walmart, which were just regular voice recorders, but it still did the job. Anyway, we would look for the most abandoned places to search for paranormal activity. I was in charge of researching the haunted places near us that would hopefully yield any kind of evidence. After our first few investigations, we were all standing outside Wolo's truck after work. It was our typical pre-game, pre-ghost hunting ritual. I can remember it like it was yesterday. All of us worked the same shift, but somehow Pike got out 10 minutes before me and Wolo did. I had a fresh 12-pack of Milwaukee's Best on ice in Wolo's truck bed. As he and I made our way outside, we both found our buddy Pike waiting for us. We also found out that about 4 of the 12 beers were already gone. I can only imagine who drank those. Good God, bro. You really downed 4 beers in 10 minutes? I know the ghost didn't. As I said, raising my eyebrows at the 6'5" German tank that he was. He was fully born in America, but had an all-German family. He sheepishly smiled and gave both of us a look and said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Wolo laughed and said, "Shit, dude, I'm gonna need to catch up real freaking quick now. You guys start sweet-talking those demons when we get there, and I'll probably go pick up another 6-pack. Maybe a bottle or 2. Or 3. Probably 6. I wonder if they make a 12-pack for bottles. Huh." We all laughed. Pike and I, of course, looked at each other with the, here we go kind of look, referring to Wolo's drinking habits. We all drank, but he took it a little far some nights. I went to the cooler where Pike had downed about 1/3 of our beers for the night and pulled out 3 airplane shot bottles of 100 proof peppermint schnapps. As we commenced the pre-show ritual, Pike stopped, pulling his bottle back just a hair before the toast. I looked at him with slight confusion. "What's up, man?" I asked. "We need a name," Pike finally ousted. "A name, you say?" Wallow responded, finishing his 5th beer. "Yeah, man. We are gonna make it big time, my guys. We've already got some great EVPs, and even you got what looks like a shadow person, Wallow. We need a brand. You know, for when the big networks start calling." We all laughed. Clearly he was being funny, though I did see he had a tiny shred of geniusness and hope behind this. He really did like doing this. I smiled, looking down at my chilled bottle of high-proof peppermint schnapps. Pike and Wallow's laugh began to trail off. What's up, bro?" Pike said. I looked up quickly, realizing I was probably staring at that shot for an uncomfortable amount of time. "I got it," I said quietly. I laughed to myself, finally meeting eyes with my comrades. I was met back with raised eyebrows. I took a long look at my shot, and I raised it to the heavens. They raised their glasses high up with me, even though they didn't know what was going on. They still did it, and I appreciate that. These, my friends, are spirit shots, and we are investigating the paranormal. Both guys laughed, still following me, but not following me. I felt like Rick Grimes saying his iconic line in a comic and show, "We are the Walking Dead." I finally dropped the suspense. "Dudes, we're SSPI. I studied their faces, still covered in confusion. Bro, seriously, Spirit Shot Paranormal Investigators. SSPI. Come on, bros, you gotta be with me on this. I mean, there's a show called TAPS, and we've all seen it. It literally stands for the Atlantic Paranormal Society. That sounds dumb as hell, but people still watch TAPS, and they know it as TAPS, so I mean, SSPI can't be that bad, right?" "Hey now, you're on to something," Pike said excitingly and slammed his shot into ours. We threw down a peppermint schnapps, winced, laughed, and got ready for our investigation. I can't remember what particular haunt we were in that day when we came up with the name of the group, but I don't remember much of that night, to be honest. Hopefully none of us drove home after that. But if I'm being honest, I'm sure Wallow drove us, and that was one of our big mistakes, continuing to let him drive even if he was a bit tipsy. We carried out our typical SSPI romps almost weekly. Impressive for 3 guys with full-time jobs and families and kids. Thankfully, their respective wives and kids understood, or at least tolerated it. One of our most successful nights found us at a public park. It was small and open to anyone. The reports online were laughable though, which made us want to investigate it that much harder. Halmich Park in Warren, Michigan is laid out with your typical playground area, park benches, areas to picnic, and 4 baseball fields. Mainly occupied by softball players, but at any time during the week, you could find anyone from t-ball squads to hardcore adult beer league softball players smacking an oversized baseball around and screaming home run, even though they barely hit the ball past first base. According to a random, anonymous account online, the legend goes that softball players would purposefully try to hit bombs beyond the outfield fence to hit and kill kids. When they did, they ran out and circled the dead child, chanting around them. It's gotten real dark, didn't it? I can remember me and Pike dying of laughter as we read this. There's not a damn chance this was real, but it certainly was entertaining. The other more well-known legend of Halmich was that when you drove into the park after midnight, your vehicle will hit some unknown object. When you check to see what you hit, nothing is there. But as you look up, you see taillights leaving the park. The story was that some kid was killed by an unknowing driver in the past and sped away as to not get into trouble for killing a child. A lot of places in the US have a super similar story. I know hit and runs are pretty common, but come on, it's a child. Anyways, the preparations were complete. As usual, I did all the preparations. I researched the site. I bought our booze. I made sure we were all ready to spend the night in this park after hours. However, Wolo got the peppermint schnapps. Just that. So I guess I didn't do everything myself, right? As we entered the park, I felt the front of my '98 Mustang hit something. There's no way, right? There was nothing in front of us. I looked at Pike in the passenger seat, and then Wolo in the back. For once, we didn't have anything to say. I slowly got out the car. Thankfully, I remembered to put it into park. I slowly approached the hood, searching my surroundings, not seeing any animal or person lying on the ground. What I did see, though, was a gigantic speed bump. I stood up straight and looked at my friend sitting in the car still. I tried to continue the mystery by scaringly pointing in front of my car as if I did hit something. Pike got out to look. Wolo stayed in the back looking stone-faced. I'm sure he either was deep into his 9th beer or he just didn't really care. Pike slowly made his way to me from the opposite side of the car. He let out a gigantic laugh after he saw we just hit a speed bump a bit too quickly. So I put this together very fast. Alright, listen here, boy. This here is real. So listen closely. The legend did say that as you enter the park, you hit something. But when you look, nothing can be found, right? You follow me? Then you find taillights. I failed to mention that I actually did see taillights as I left my vehicle. The legend most likely comes from people like myself hitting that huge speed bump thinking it's a person. The entrance to the park is a one-way, so seeing taillights leaving isn't that insane, as though there's only one way in and one way out. Pike looked at me and just shook his head. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing that I made up on the spot, so you gotta give me some sort of credit, you know. The rest of the night's investigations did yield some fairly decent EVPs. After reviewing our findings the next day, hungover of course, I did hear a scary otherworldly voice breathe in and say, "Death follows." It was pretty good evidence. Scary evidence, at least. For many different reasons, this was our last investigation for well over half a year. No fallout or anything. We just had too many obligations elsewhere. More important obligations. Our family and kids, they kinda take priority over this ghost hunting thing, you know? And don't get me wrong though, we still work together. We're friendly to each other, but had to do the normal grown-up things that most people our age do. Well, that was until Pike came to me one day with a bright idea for getting the gang back together. He was as giddy as a schoolgirl walking through the makeup aisle at a Target on her birthday. Slaughterhouse. I stared at Pike. Surely there must be more that follows that one word, right? Especially a word like that could elicit 1,000 different emotions. I kind of closed my mouth puffing out my upper lip in conjunction and raising my eyebrows at him. You know, the universal sign for, okay, I'm waiting for the rest. Apparently, Pike has this buddy that he grew up with that works in a meatpacking facility. Said the place was getting slow, and if he wanted to come in and hang when it was closed, he could make that happen. I stopped him right there. Red flags were waving everywhere in my mind. Okay, so let me get this straight. So, your friend just randomly invited you to hang out in a meatpacking plant out of nowhere. I don't get it. And you also said Slaughterhouse. What am I missing here? I confusedly asked him. He shook his head and rubbed his face like he was resetting. When his giant hand left his mouth, he was once again smiling, strangely. Okay, first off, you need to chill out. Yeah, it's a meatpacking plant, but they do dispatch their products on site, so it's technically a slaughterhouse. Plus, that sounds more badass, doesn't it? And secondly, dude is freaking haunted. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. No one has ever done a paranormal investigation here. We could be noticed by Zach Baggins, you know, Pike said, extremely excited. Now I actually get where he was going with this. Look at my big German friend, scouting out a location to investigate. Like the big adult he is, I was pretty proud of him. Nice, bro, nice, I said, smiling back at him. He went on to give me the details about the slaughterhouse, which I then relayed to Wallow, and of course he was in, there's no doubt about that. After I was filled in a bit more, I actually found out that Pike's friend knew he liked scary ghost adventure stuff. Said that he had some first-hand accounts of creepy happenings while he was working. It was intriguing. I mean, we've half-assed investigated a good half-dozen or so locations, but this one seemed different. We had someone that claimed to hear things, see dark shadows, and even watched what he described as a creeping figure, or creeper, as they're called in the paranormal world, come toward him, only to disappear once they were face to face. This sounded pretty promising. Actually, it sounded pretty damn good, and you know what that means. Commence the pre-show ritual, baby. This was SSPI after all. To summarize, we drank a lot. Probably shouldn't have, but it was a celebration for getting back together after some time. So, this place was a slaughterhouse. I'll ask you to think about that for a bit. What comes to mind? Bloody meat hanging from the rafters, throws filled with blood, furnaces burning the blood off of tenderloins, T-bones, porterhouse cuts, and the like. Yeah, me too. Well, it wasn't like that. Not a bit. The room where the business took place was way in the back of the building. It was very small. When you walked into the front, it looked more like a retail store more than anything. They had books, bread, toys, and glass counters with animal products wrapped up. It was a very professional operation. When Pike's friend saw him, he excitedly ushered him, Wolo, and myself behind the counter. Apparently, the scary part was nowhere near the butchered animals. The dark energy lived in the basement. Of course, it's in the basement, I blurted out, not entirely meaning to. I gave a look to Wolo, motioning the bottle I had in my left hand. Ooh, I gotta pull it back a bit, but come on, man, why can't the dark presence ever be in the sunroom, or the backyard, or the garage? I said, annoyed. before we both started laughing. After we started trailing the laughter off, I looked at Pike's friend, who never did tell us his name now that I think of it. He wasn't laughing either. He only left us with this, as he gave us a stone-cold stare, as if he really seen a ghost. Look, there's no history of a 6-year-old girl getting suffocated down there by an 1800s serial killer. There is no documented history of Ouija board use, or a portal open to hell down there. It's just bad. Pike, I know you want to do this. I just ask all of you to use extreme caution. Your lives truly depend on it. The way that he just said all of that in detail makes me think that all of that happened, but he just doesn't want to say it. Wallow and I weren't laughing anymore. In fact, he wasn't even by me. I looked at Pike, who was talking to his friend, saying something like thanks again for letting us mess around down here. I did hear him say it wouldn't be too long. I caught eyes with Pike when his bud left. We were still excited. That sounds pretty wild, man. This might actually get some results, I said to him. Pikes raised his eyebrows and bit his lip with anxiety. Yeah, I just never seen him that serious before. As he said that, his buddy opened the cellar door that led to the basement. Pikes and I cheered. Well, with our beers, of course. It's not like we're literally raising our arms and yelling. Come on, we're not that immature. Wait, Pike said. Where's the big dummy? Referring to Wolo. I told Pike he was right here with me when the monologue about how dangerous and or scary the basement is. As I was about to continue my sentence, I heard creepy laughing just off in the other room. Not the basement, but on our level. Pike and I looked at each other. Go time, he said. Dude, did you hear that? I think it was... As I peeked into the other room, I saw Wolo, and I almost threw up. He was talking with one of the other employees I had not seen earlier. She must have just shown up, and she looked like... Well, do you remember Mimi from the Drew Carey show? The woman with makeup so caked up that she looked like a clown gone wrong. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, you'll regret it, but do it anyway. Well, Wolo was notorious for hitting on anything with a pulse. He would probably bang a chair if it had a heartbeat. The worst thing was I think she was chewing tobacco. Pike and I looked at each other and then tried to cover our laughs so we wouldn't get noticed. Hey, you want to just leave him out of this one? I said, knowing that at this point there was no redeeming Wolo for a ghost hunt. Pike shook his head up and down, holding his mouth with his giant hands to stop from audibly laughing. Good, I snickered. Then let's go. Immediately, the tone shifted. We weren't in Kansas anymore. We weren't in a slaughterhouse anymore. We were in what looked to be the basement of a house set in the Blair Witch Project. It was really eerie. Getting right to business though, Pike started an EVP session as I started to video record using my phone. Anyone here? If anyone is here, say your name or Make something move. Or something. Please. I looked at him, squinting my eyes and scrunching my nose like, what the hell was that? We've done this before. Dude, Pike said, something just feels weird. Sorry, it just caught me off guard. I understood. It was different. Much different of an air that we've ever encountered. No sweat, man. Just... What the hell was that? Something just moved right by my ear. As I tried to whip around to tell Pike what happened, I couldn't find him. I couldn't see either. There was already little light, but now it felt like I was blind. Well, okay. I'm literally holding my phone in my hands. Thanks, brain. I fumbled for what felt like hours, finally turning the flashlight on. It illuminated the space, thankfully. With it, I found Pike, kneeling, looking down at the ground with his arms just weightless by his sides. Hey, you okay? He nodded, acknowledging my question, but not answering verbally. I told him something felt like it ran past me. He kept his position, not moving. Now, getting concerned, I wanted to grab his arm and maybe say, let's call this whole thing off. It's getting a little too real for me. Hey, big guy, maybe it's not a good time for this. Use the gun. Kill him. Both Pikes and I flew onto our asses, respectively. It wasn't gentle either, like something pushed us both at the same time. Like something physically pushed us. Beside the fact that two grown men were seemingly just tossed to the ground like children, the voice I heard was loud. Ear-splittingly loud. Without thinking, I asked him to replay the last minute on his recorder. Without even asking, he did. We both sat in silence, waiting to hear what I thought I heard. The replay told a very different story. I did indeed hear what I thought, and judging by Pike's face, it's what he heard as well. Use the gun. Kill him. We really did hear an otherworldly voice whisper, "Get the gun and kill him." I think I heard the voice of a demon. I think Pike did too. Stupidly, we were both carrying that night. No one, including law enforcement, is allowed to be carrying a handgun or any gun while under the influence. The realization that something was actually here made my blood freeze. My phone's battery drained from 96% to 0 in the matter of seconds, and my only source of light went away. It was pure darkness. I couldn't hear or see anything. Until moments later I started hearing voices. They got louder. And louder. Then silence. Then I started hearing footsteps. I thought maybe it was Pike, so I shouted out for him. And before I could call for him again, something screamed. It didn't sound like Pike or anyone else. At this point, I was lying in the fetal position, All of the noises began to be too much for me to handle, but then my phone came back with 96% battery life left. When I turned my flashlight back on, all I saw was blood on the floor. I yelled for Pike. I yelled for Wolo. No response. Now in full panic mode, I found the stairway. I climbed, slowly getting to the top. Halfway, I seen a black mist appear at the top of the stairwell. I don't know if it was human. I'm sure it wasn't. The head of this thing appeared to grow horns. It was breathing heavily and dripping some sort of liquid from its mouth. It walked down to me slowly. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Was this the devil himself? His legs were completely covered in hair and had feet that resembled hooves like a goat. It picked me up and threw me back down the stairs, knocking me out cold. I woke up in a barely lit room. As my vision became more clear, I seen Pike's friend and the woman Wolo was talking to, dead lying in the middle of the floor. They both had multiple gunshot wounds to the head. I saw something moving toward me from the darkness, and I shouted out for my friends. Still no answer. As the figures moved out of the shadows, I could see it was Pike and Wolo. I was so happy to see them, until I really seen them. Their eyes were completely whited out. They just stood there, like statues with a blank emotion on their face. I yelled and screamed for them to snap out of it, but nothing happened. I heard something else moving around in the darkness, like it was running around me. Something that sounded like it was stepping fast. Being beyond scared at this moment, I went to grab my gun out of pure fear, but it wasn't there. That's when Pike pulled out his gun and aimed it at me. Shortly following was Wolo pulling out my gun and also aiming it at me. I went cold. I didn't know what to do. Were my friends about to shoot me? But then a cold gust of wind passed by me, and all I heard were those voices again. I didn't know what they were saying. It just sounded like a lot of people whispering at once. But Pike and Wolo stopped aiming at me. I thought they snapped out of it, but it only got worse. They aimed their guns at each other and started whispering, "Use the gun, kill him, do it, kill him, do it, over and over and over again." I was suddenly picked up by an unknown force and dragged out of the room quickly, where the last moments I saw my friends were them aiming guns at each other, twitching their heads in inhumane ways while chanting that saying. As I was dragged out the room, the door to the room they were in slammed shut, and the last thing I heard was a gunshot. I blacked out, I guess. Waking up, I was in a vehicle right outside of the slaughterhouse. I groggily made my way to the door, and it was locked. I was in the back of a police car, but with no cuffs on. I looked at my phone, called Wolo, called Pike. Nothing. I texted them. Still nothing. a text notification popped up saying, "What did you do?" from my wife. I tried to respond, but my hands went numb. I don't know, is all I could think. I said at the beginning that my friends died, but I don't know that for sure. I remember having my gun, but I don't remember giving it to Wolo. How did he get my gun? Was I just imagining that they shot each other, or did I kill them? Either way, it wasn't me who killed them. It was it that killed them. I don't remember what happened. I really don't know what happened to my friends and if they are alive or not. I've never seen them again. I never told anyone this. The locks on the car door somehow disengaged and I left. I ran back down into the basement of the slaughterhouse. I don't know where I'm at this moment of you all reading this. I should have done the right thing and turned myself in, even though I pray that I had nothing to do with their disappearance. But again, I don't know anything for sure. But something is attracting me back down into that basement. I'm just sorry it ended like this. And to my friends and family, this was not your fault. I hope I'll see you again in another life. So until next time, I hope you join us when we open the Book of Wretch yet again. But remember, be careful when you enter the mind of a wretched. You may just leave a wretch. Good night and pleasant nightmares.